about them Broken Bow fans. Hey, they're going crazy out here. I've never seen anything like it.
Hey, welcome back to the pod. Southeast Beast back at you. Skip Copeland and Chris Chandler talking about the Broken Bow Savages, their game against the Ada Cougars last Saturday afternoon, and their upcoming playoff game this weekend in the first round of the Class 4A playoffs for 2022. Chris, that was a tough game for the Savages against a traditional power in Oklahoma, the Ada Cougars. You never want to play poorly against any team, but especially not against one with, tradition, that of the Ada Cougars.
Well, one of the things you can't do against a good football team like that is make mistakes, commit turnovers, and make mistakes on special teams. It's arguable. It's always arguable, but it probably cost the Savages the game, or certainly put it out of reach toward the end. And they played so well on defense, but gave up a special teams touchdown and had a couple of turnovers, and it cost them.
They did have a couple of turnovers. I thought the biggest, most glaring weakness of the team on Saturday was the ability to protect the quarterback. That really stood out to me, that the Cougars most of the time had a three-man rush. They were bringing some blitz packages, but even with just the three-man rush, they were getting pressure and forcing Brumley out of the pocket, forcing him to make quick throws, and he was not very accurate because of that.
And, and you take into consideration that Christian Brumley is not a statue. He is a very mobile quarterback. He can scramble. And in fact, he was scrambling for his life most of the time on Saturday. And that's just, and still was unable to, get loose on a lot of plays or throw it downfield and hand it to the linebacking core in the secondary of the Ada Cougars. They had us covered. There weren't open receivers once he scrambled out of the pocket. So that was good defense. I mean, they did not allow him to look downfield and find open receivers very often. We did have a couple of drops, but yeah, he did not have 4 or 5 seconds to throw. We couldn't establish any, other than 1 or 2 plays, we really couldn't establish long routes where you found him deep downfield on the vertical passing game. And so it was a combination of the rush and coverage, and it kind of stymied the Broken Bow offense.
Yeah, they worked that 3-5-3 zone look all day, and were very effective with it. They particularly were effective with their zones. I thought in that short range, 5 to 7 yard passing range, I thought their zones were extremely effective. Broken Bow did not have an alternative plan prepared for the case that failed, and they were really struggling all day on offense to find something in the playbook that would work for them. And they never did. They just honestly never found anything. The Cougars kept them stymied and stifled all day long.
And we couldn't, you say you can't find anything else. It's also the running game wasn't working. I mean, Camden Rogers is one of the probably pound for pound, almost definitely toughest player on the team. Had a couple of good runs, ran over a couple of people, but still, you couldn't rely on that running up the middle or off tackle with him that keeps the linebackers, watching for the run. And so they were free to just drop back in coverage. And as a result, the Savages, scored 7 points, had one really good drive, had another one that ended with a turnover. But, and also, they didn't help themselves by having a couple of penalties. But really, after the first half, just not able to move the ball.
Yeah, they struggled all day. And then even on defense, they, let me back up for a second, and I will say this. Hats off to number 14, Andrew Hughes. He is a player. He put it on the Savages on Saturday. He was impressive to watch. He went up and got passes that, had 3 people around him in a zone, and went up and got big first down grabs, caught a beautiful fade pass that, the quarterback put in the right spot for him for a touchdown on a big 4th down play, returned a kickoff for a touchdown that was really a backbreaker. The Savages had put together a great offensive drive. They turn around, kick the football off, Hughes catches it on the run, and nobody touched him all the way for 6. And, it's a tie game right away.
He literally was the difference in the game. It was a 21-7 game. 2 touchdowns scored by Andrew Hughes, and on one, nobody other than him touched the football unless you count AZ Zaragoza kicking it. And so, and on that, it was a beautiful fade route, and he was, right there. The guy's a huge target. He's the state high jump champ. He's 6'4", and he's fast. And the Savages found out how fast he was on Saturday, but also defensively. He was back there. We couldn't, one play in particular, I remember we threw, actually did have Whitfield down, not down the middle, but kind of down on the sort of on the perimeter, right on the hash marks. And I know there aren't hash marks there, but where hash marks would be. And the pass, usually you see Whitfield go up and get those. And he is playing hurt, and it was obvious. But Andrew Hughes just goes up and knocks it down. And it's like, oh, man, this guy, we're not going to be able to throw over him.
No, he's a great football player. He really is. And he was very impressive. I was impressed with him on film, but watching him in person, he's going places. He's got the body. He's got that 6'4" frame with a speed to go with it and a chance to get muscular on top of that. He could really, really be a standout player at the next level. He's a good one. Savages really struggled all day long to kind of put things together, really both sides of the football, but particularly on offense, they struggled all day long, could not really seem to sustain a drive other than the one scoring drive that they had, and it just came back to haunt them. They just never could separate themselves from the Cougars, and the Cougars came in ready to play, had a good game plan for the Savages, and they executed it perfectly. Won the game by 2 touchdowns. The Savages, by virtue of that loss, fall to 4th place in District 4A4. The Cougars claimed the 3rd place prize. If we go back to the preview of the district that we talked about, the 4 teams we thought were the playoff teams, those are exactly the ones. Poto, the champion, 5 times in a row now that they've won this district. Hilldale finishes 2nd, Ada 3rd, Broken Bow 4th. That's your order as we head into the playoffs. What does that mean for the Savages? It means they have the opportunity to play the number 1 team in Class 4A, the unbeaten Cushing Tigers. And if you think Ada and Hilldale are formidable opponents, wait till you get a load of these guys.
They are, they're ranked number 1 for a reason. They are undefeated for a reason.
I will say this. I think they could be ranked number 1, 2, and 3, and then the next team is number 4. That's how good they are.
There's when people talk in sports, a lot of times you hear, oh, they're at a different level. They're playing at a whole another level. This is true of Cushing. They look like the number 1 or 2 team in like 6A or 5A. They're one of those dominant teams, every aspect of the game, and they're scary. And Savages are going in as a huge underdog, and they're going to have to play a perfect game in order to defeat this Cushing Tiger team.
They really are. They're led by a quarterback that's already signed with a Division I school in New Mexico. Well, I say signed. He hasn't signed. He has committed to New Mexico.
Yeah, verbally committed.
To New Mexico State. And he looks it. He looks the part. He completes about 65% of his passes. He's thrown for well over 2,000 yards already this season. He's thrown for over 30 touchdowns. I don't even know what the number is at this point, but he is a fascinating quarterback to watch because he is so poised. He moves well. He's a big kid. He's built like our quarterback is, and he's just got all the tools. But he's not the best football player on the team, Chris.
That's number 21.
It really is.
And I hadn't actually watched them play, and then you said, yeah, number 21 is all over the place on both sides of the ball. And that is a kid that every coach wants a player like that. And again, I don't know what his attitude is. I don't know off the field, but on the field, he is everywhere. And he's the kind of guy, he flies to the football. And when he gets there, he brings down the ball carrier. And not only is he by himself forced to be reckoned with, but when you have a player like that, what happens is you get other kids on the field that emulate him, and so their entire defense flies to the ball, and you got a guy that form tackles and will put the shoulder pad right into your midsection and take you down, and that's what you want. And everybody else on that team looks like they have improved their play, and I bet it's because of number 21.
He is special. Camden Crooks is the young man's name. He is all over the field. He is so physical. He's so fast. And, he's the back-to-back 300-meter hurdle champion in Oklahoma. And that means he won it as a sophomore and a junior and will be defending back-to-back champions this spring when he goes to the state track tournament. He's not just that. He's the 181-pound powerlifting champion in the state of Oklahoma and will be defending that particular title this year as well. He is an all-around athlete and a genuine stud if there ever was one, and the Savages will have to contend with him this weekend.
You obviously has speed, obviously has power, and he knows football. He has just incredible form. He's out there, and you see a guy tackle. I mean, that's the thing, and he breaks tackles too on offense. I mean, they get the ball in his hands, and it's like, oh man, how did he get out of that? But the most impressive thing to me is when he gets to you, you're down. Yeah, very, very few broken tackles. In fact, I didn't see one. When he was there, the ball carrier went down in the video I looked at. And again, it's not just him.
No, it's not just him. He's the best of the best of what they have. But they've got a great group of seniors. They seem to be a team of destiny. So this is what do you call those games where you have absolutely nothing to lose? That's what the Savages are in right here. You can pin your ears back. You can do whatever you want because everybody expects you to get beat by 6 or 7 touchdowns anyway. You might as well go out there and just see what you can do against these guys.
Well, yeah. I guess one way to look at it, especially, and I'm sure, I'm not sure, but this is the way I'd frame it, is, I guess the Bromo Savages are the kid with the sling, and the stone going up against the giant in armor. But sometimes, David can beat Goliath, and that's what the Savages are looking at to pull off what would be the biggest upset in the history of Broken Bow football. But if they have everybody healthy and they play like they can, it's possible.
It is possible, and I'm telling you something. It puts them in a genuinely good position if they can beat Cushing, because they're on the weak side of the bracket, in my estimation. They would get another shot potentially at Hilldale in that bracket as well, because Hilldale's on that side. It puts them opposite side from Wagner and Ada and Poto and, all the teams, the traditional teams that have all the great playoff experience and coaches that have been there and done that. They're down on the bottom side of the bracket. So if the Savages could win somehow in this road game against Cushing this weekend, they would be back in Memorial Stadium for round 2 against a team that would not be a district champion because of the way the bracket is designed. And so you would have week 2 at home against an opponent that you should be very competitive with and a chance to be right there in the semifinals. So it's all bets are off this weekend. The Savages need to go and get it done against the number 1 team in the state and put themselves in a position to make a playoff run.
Yeah, and let me clarify. Clarify what you said. The weaker side of the bracket. That's if the Savages eliminate Cushing from it, it would be the weaker side of the bracket. With Cushing in there, it is the strongest side of the bracket, as you mentioned. They are probably the top 3 teams in 4A. But
touche, definitely, you're right about that. Yeah.
But that's the thing, and that's you set brackets up that way. You don't want to eliminate the strongest teams against each other, and then have a weaker opponent go up against a powerhouse. And so it's set up that way for a reason. It's just because of the way the districts are. The Savages have the, I guess, bad luck, or another way to look at it is as you put it, the opportunity to pull off a big upset. But they are going to have to play lights out, their best game. And if they play their best game, it's still going to be close. This team is so good that, they can. Cushing has, I guess you'd call it a little cushion, not to throw a cushion, but they can actually play not their best game and still win because they are that good.
They are that good, and they are at home, and they've got a lot of advantages. It's a long bus ride up there. That's always tough on the Savages when we travel in the playoffs. When we travel at any point in the season, but particularly during the playoffs. And we'll hope for the best, Chris. That's all we can do. We just go and cheer our Savages on. We love them no matter what happens, and we'll hope for the best. Hopefully that's what happens. We look back at this season. It's a team that struggled to find an identity. They've played extremely well. We're in a one-score contest most of the game against the number one team at the time in 5A. They played extremely well against the district champion Poto Pirates of 4A4 and beat them by 2 touchdowns. But then you turn around and you see a complete defensive collapse against a team like Medill that didn't even qualify for the playoffs. You see a team that went to Hilldale and really just really got embarrassed. I mean, that's the only way to say it, against the Hilldale Hornets that night when they had a chance to control their own destiny and could not. And then one final chance to avoid having to play the Cushing Tigers last Saturday against Ada, and the Savages fell flat and were lost by 2 touchdowns. So it's a team that's really hard to pin in terms of personality and do they have the heart of a champion? From outside appearances, it doesn't look that way. There's a chance to prove that wrong this weekend against the Cushing Tigers.
Yeah, and I will say at that Hilldale game, about half the team was sick with the stomach virus. They a couple of examples, a couple of players are literally throwing up on the sideline, but you still had some mental breakdowns. I think we had either 8 or 9 turnovers. Those are the things. You can't afford one. Again, we have to play a perfect game at Cushing, but one way to look at it is 18 seniors. It was it was going to be senior night. It turned out to be senior day on Saturday. 18 seniors on the football team. That's huge. I mean, that's a big contingent of seniors, and they know that if they don't win, they're playing their final game in the black and gold. And so sometimes you see guys step up and perform some outstanding feats on the football field just out of call it desperation, because if you lose here, that's it. Your high school career is done. And so we hope the Savages suit up, go up there, and play the kind of Savage football we know they're capable of.
The 7-3 Broken Bow Savages on the road against the 10-0 ranked number 1 Cushing Tigers. It's all happening this weekend, Friday night. And we'll have a recap of the game next week and a preview of our week 2 opponent, if that's what happens. We'll be back with the podcast next week. Please join us then. Until then, I'm Skip Copeland.
And I'm Chris Chandler. And remember, once a Savage,
always a Savage.